bone and sickle, bleeding saints and forest witches, the past unburied, the books unsealed, the old celebration returning.
Hello, and welcome to my study. Please come in and have a seat. All the books surrounding you are those used to research our show, and the individual to my right here, along with managing domestic duties, serves as our reader for any passages that will be directly quoted from these sources. Her name is Mrs. Carswell.
Hello.
So
you're really going to do it?
Yes, and are you going to undercut me the whole time?
I just want to be sure people know that I'm not a part of this.
Fine. Anyway, as longtime listeners know, we had a problem that started last year. Some strange events and unexplained phenomena. I'll just say it. It seemed that some entity was haunting our basement. And one of the strange things that happened was that toward the end of it all, the bees Mrs. Carswell keeps disappeared from their apiaries and made their way into the basement, as if drawn by a supernatural force. While they were down there, they do what bees do, and I'm making this unique product available to listeners. Haunted honey.
Try at your own risk.
I told you, I tried it and it seems completely normal. No ill effects.
If it's completely ordinary, why are you selling it as haunted honey?
Showbiz. Marketing. It has novelty appeal. It's a conversation piece I think our listeners would appreciate.
It's tacky and exploitative of bees.
There's so much of it, and you refuse to let me sell it at your farmer's market, so I'm left no option.
Why don't I start plugging my honey on the show then? If you're in the area, look for Carswell honey. The Carswell honey.
You said stop
at
it.
The Park Farmers Market. I'm on the south end of the park near and every Sunday, 8 a.m.
You know, I don't want that information out there.
Why are you so paranoid about our location?
I don't trust people. There are wackos out there.
Says the man selling demon honey.
I'll just bleep it out. Can you remind me?
You're so paranoid. It's unwelcoming to the listeners.
Well, our Patreon earnings have taken a little dip, so I'm just doing what I can.
And you're going to ask me to mail it all out?
That'd be nice, thanks.
I told you to just throw it in the trash.
You know, the way you talk about this, it's like you don't even realize these are your own bees we're talking about. I thought you loved your bees, but now you just want to trash all their work?
Those weren't my bees. They weren't themselves. They were in a dark place.
Yes, the basement. Well, let's just start. Contact me via boneandsickle.com if you're interested in the haunted honey. Stop it. And visit our Patreon to see all the wonderful rewards membership can bring, including discounts on haunted honey.
I thought you wanted to start.
I do. That's patreon.com/boneandsickle, one word. Now, this. Episode 156, Robert the Devil. Gothic opera. Medieval legend. You are hearing a snippet from Act 3 of Giacomo Meyerbeer's 1831 opera, Robert le Diable, Robert the Devil. Now, rarely produced, it was wildly successful at the time, running for 756 performances between 1831 and 1893 at the Paris Opera. It was also rather scandalous thanks to a ballet sequence involving the spirits of fallen nuns rising in their convent's crypt. In his 1847 autobiography, Hans Christian Andersen described attending the opera while in Paris, focusing on this scene.
By the hundred they rise from the graveyard and drift into the cloister. They seem not to touch the earth. Like vaporous images, they glide past one another. Suddenly, the shrouds fall to the ground. They stand in all their voluptuous nakedness, and there begins a bacchanal.
A bit of wishful misremembering here, as the performers were not actually naked, but clothed in diaphanous costume and called upon to seduce the protagonist, Robert the Devil, or Robert, Duke of Normandy, as he's called in Meyerbeer's libretto. The opera is fairly different from the medieval legend, which we'll be getting to. In the final act of the opera, Robert realizes that his loyal friend and advisor, Bertram, is actually his own father and a devil. Much of the story involves Bertram meddling in Robert's pursuit of a woman named Isabelle. His entrance into the cloister where the ballet is staged has been encouraged by Bertram's suggestion that he can obtain there a magic cypress branch that will aid him in pursuit of Isabelle. As Robert enters, Bertram summons the spirits of the dead nuns with the intent that they will seduce him and through this win his soul to the devil. The libretto describes the scene being staged in a ruined cloister filled with mist, a
courtyard filled with tombstones, some of them overgrown with vegetation. Will-o'-the-wisps flit through these long galleries and are extinguished on the tombs of the nuns or the tombstones in the courtyard. Then the stone figures, rising effortlessly, stand upright and glide over the earth.
It's implied that the nuns of the convent had succumbed to sin in life, and through Bertram's dark influence, they attempt to draw Robert into various indulgences, dancing sensuously, proffering goblets of wine, casting dice, and pushing in upon him with lustful desire.
The moment Robert plucks the branch, thunder rumbles. The nuns turn into specters, and demons emerge from under the ground. He pushes his way through the specters, waving the branch.
It's hard to overstate just what an impression Meyerbeer's opera made at the time. The French writer Amandine Dupin, better known under her pen name Georges Sand, published a letter to the composer in the 1830s comparing him to Dante, declaring,
"You have surprised the secrets of invisible choirs. You have pierced the impenetrable silence of the tomb, and under the quivering floors of cathedrals, you have heard the bitter lamentations of the damned and the threats of the angels of darkness. All these wild and gloomy allegories you have seized in their profound sense and in their sublime melancholy."
Edgar Degas painted not one, but two renderings of the ballet. Meyerbeer was awarded membership in France's Legion of Honor. King Frederick William III of Prussia begged him to compose an opera in German. German poet Heinrich Heine ruminated over the opera as an expression of the zeitgeist. Honoré de Balzac and Alexandre Dumas worked Robert le Diable into plot lines of novels, the latter into The Count of Monte Cristo. And Frédéric Chopin, who attended the premiere, gushed,
"If ever magnificence was seen in the theater, I doubt that it reached the level of splendor shown in Robert. It is a masterpiece."
Aside from the scandalous narrative, the Ballet of the Nuns made an impact with its new style of ballet, one linked to Romanticism's interest in the supernatural. The romantic ballet blanc, as it was called, white ballet, was named for the innovative long flowing white skirts that lent themselves to wafting movements suggestive of misty wisps moving through the darkness. This as opposed to classical ballet's stiff pancake style of tutu, which stood out and was designed to show off exacting footwork. The impact of Meyerbeer's ghostly nuns led, the following year, to the Paris premiere of the first full-length romantic ballet, La Sylphide, in which the long-skirted dancers represented sylphs encountered in a moonlit forest. In 1841, Ballet Blanc dancers again haunted the woods as vengeful female ghosts in Giselle. And in 1877, Tchaikovsky created the genre's best-known example, the enchanted swan maidens of Swan Lake. The 1831 Paris premiere of Robert le Diable also featured Italian-Swedish ballerina Maria Taglioni, who would star in La Sylphide the following year. This luminary of the romantic ballet may not be a household name, but at the time, her following was so fanatical that in 1842, a group of devotees in St. Petersburg pooled their money to purchase her very expensive, used point shoes, which they ate, cooked in a stew, enjoyed with champagne. The production of Robert le Diable also helped save the Paris Opera House. After the July Revolution of 1830, the state had withdrawn its subsidy, so it was up to the new director, Louis Véron, to score a commercial success. Luckily, he listened to his managing director, Henri Duponchel, whose instincts for stagecraft contributed much to the opera's success. Duponchel, who had worked as an architect and served the opera's stage and costume designer, also made critical changes to the script. As recalled in Véron's 1853 autobiography, Robert's retrieval of the magic branch originally took place in a setting that was
nothing but a picture from the old operatic Olympus, with arrows, quivers, doves, and gauze. Monsieur Duponchel, whom I had entrusted with the supervision of the scenery and costumes, went into the most amusing rage with these antiquities, these relics of the classic heavens, and proposed the scene of the nuns coming out of their tombs in the midst of the cloister scene.
Although the opera's set in Sicily, Duponchel chose to model his cloisters closely on the ruins of the 11th century castle of Montfort-l'Amaury, a popular focus of French romantic interest, as evidenced by Victor Hugo's publication of an ode on the site 3 years earlier. The setting and staging was designed to showcase the opera's new, brighter system of gas lighting, which made use of reflectors that spotlit certain elements while leaving other areas in dramatic darkness. Trapdoors were also installed for the magic appearances and disappearance of characters, something already in use, but only in the popular theaters presenting less serious works. Véron recognized the popular appeal and commercial rewards of elaborate stagecraft, special effects of their day, and allowed Duponchel unlimited funds for the production. Meyerbeer, when seeing the results dramatically lit with mist effect and possibly a few will-o'-the-wisp or night birds zipping around, must have felt a little upstaged. As Véron recalls,
"All this is very fine," said the maestro to me with an almost annoyed air. "But you don't believe in the merit of my music, and are aiming at a spectacular success."
Spectacle certainly played a role in the opera's success, and in 1847, English audiences finally got a chance to see that spectacle and those scandalous nuns. The London premiere came with another huge draw, the famous Swedish soprano Jenny Lind playing Robert's sister, Alice, who was the good angel, pitted against Bertram's evil influence. Even better, Queen Victoria attended the premiere, praising Lind's voice in her diary as
exquisite, powerful, and really quite peculiar. So round, soft, and flexible.
Victoria had been a devoted fan of Lind since seeing her debut 9 years earlier in Der Freischütz, and royal enthusiasm, as you know, is contagious. The Times reported on the unruly crowds jostling to catch just a glimpse of the Swedish nightingale, as Lynn was called, declaring,
"We have never witnessed such a scene of enthusiasm as that displayed last night."
Eager to cash in on Lind mania, British merchants produced all sorts of Lind-branded merchandise just for the occasion. Not just the usual souvenir sheet music, but Lind-branded soaps, gloves, and even ceramic figurines, duplicating her costume and posture as she clutches a wayside cross in Act 2. So, why have you not heard of this opera that set hearts in London and Paris all aflutter? Probably because it's not well suited to modern tastes. To begin, it can run up to 4.5 hours, with little of interest happening in the first 2. It's almost never produced, and when in 2012 it was presented by the Royal Opera at Covent Gardens, the ghostly nuns came off as high camp. While Meyerbeer's music has always been treated with respect, elements of the plot were dismissed, sometimes even in the glory days, as something silly and contrived. There's a reason the storyline, and especially that sequence with the nuns, for which the opera's best remembered, is so sensationalistic, to the point of being a little trashy, honestly. It was borrowed directly from a particularly sensationalistic early Gothic novel, The Monk, written by Matthew Gregory Lewis in 1764. Jumbled full of demons, gore, incest, rape, and torture, The Monk, upon publication, was widely reviled and extremely popular. Its title character is a once devout Capuchin monk, Father Ambrosio, who, like the nuns of Meyerbeer's ballet, has been corrupted. In Ambrosio's case, he's been seduced into sin by a demon in the guise of a beautiful woman, Matilda, who is like the demon disguised as Robert's friend Bertram. Ambrosio desires innocent Antonia, just as Robert with his Isabel, and Matilda is eager to see him corrupt the girl. All that's required to realize this is the aid of a magic myrtle branch, of course matching Robert's cypress branch, which must be obtained in the crypt of a convent, again, also plucked from the hand of a statue, again, and employed for the same specific purpose, that is, unlocking doors presenting access to the female desired. Meyerbeer's librettists, Eugène Scribe and Germain Delavigne, must have really had a thing for Lewis's novel, since in 1854 they produced a second libretto ripped from the pages of The Monk for Charles Gounod's opera La Nonne Sanglante, The Bloody Nun. The ethos of early Gothic literature, like The Monk, could also explain why Meyerbeer's opera transposes the medieval French legend to a setting in Sicily. Like The Monk, which is set in Spain, many early works of the Gothic genre, including the very first Gothic novel, The Castle of Otranto, which is set in Italy, took place in Catholic countries, which for northern Protestant writers and artists evoked a guilt-haunted, superstitious past. Sicily makes particular sense, as Robert is characterized in the opera as a Norman duke who's been exiled to the island, which was under Norman rule in the late 10th and early 11th century. The original legend does portray Robert as a Norman duke, although there's no exile to an exotic land. So, what of this original legend? It's time we finally take a look. As mentioned, the character of Robert the Devil was supposed to have been an 11th century Duke of Normandy, and there have been attempts to connect him with various historical personages, the 6th Duke of Normandy and father of William the Conqueror being the most common, but there's really not much of a case for that. Nonetheless, there is a Norman castle near Rouen where the legend takes place, identified today as the Château de Robert le Diable. originally called the Chateau de Moulineaux, it fell into ruin in the 14th century, and it was only in the early 1900s that it was rebuilt in an embellished storybook style and given its fanciful new name. That is the early 1900s, after the success of Meyerbeer's opera, which probably played into that. We know the legend goes back at least to the 1250s, when a short version appeared in a collection of exempla, or moral tales intended to be used by priests in their homilies. Etienne de Bourbon, the Dominican monk who compiled the collection, introduces the tale, saying it was related to him by another Dominican who recalled reading it somewhere, but that source is never provided. And at some point later in the 13th century, an anonymous narrative poem preserved in France's National Library fills out that story, which is only sketched in by the Dominican monk. Then, by the 14th century, it's included in a set of miracle plays, 40 Miracles of Our Lady, commissioned by a guild of Parisian goldsmiths. By the late 15th century, it appeared in its definitive chapbook form under the title
The Life of the Terrible, Robert the Devil.
By the 16th century, a prose version of the tale had appeared in Spain, and in Britain, Robert the Devil was performed as a miracle play in Lincoln and Chester, though those texts are also lost. In 1591, Thomas Lodge published a prose rendering as
The Famous, True and Historical Life of Robert, 2nd Duke of Normandy, surnamed for his monstrous birth and behavior, Robin the Devil.
The story reached the Netherlands in the 17th century, where it was immediately banned by the Bishop of Antwerp, and did not appear in Germany until after Meyerbeer's opera premiered. The version of the story Mrs. Carswell will be reading you is a translation of the 15th century chapbook created by Wynkyn de Woerden, assistant to the pioneering print shop operator William Caxton. I found the text reproduced in a handsome 1904 volume created under the direction of William John Toms, a fellow of the Society of Antiquaries and the individual who coined the word folklore for what was previously described as popular antiquities. The book has a nice arts and crafts feel, like one of the faux medieval books produced by William Morris, with ornamental borders and beautiful line illustrations, and I'll post that in the Patreon notes. So, our story begins in Rouen with the Duke and Duchess of Normandy, recently married but unable to conceive. When their prayers for a child go unanswered, the frustrated Duchess cries out,
In the devil's name be it, in so much as God has not the power that I conceive, and if I be conceived with child in this hour, I give it to the devil, body and soul.
And with that, the child is conceived. But when her time comes, it doesn't go smoothly. Her labor lasts for more than a month, and the birth itself is fully apocalyptic.
Wherefore they were greatly abashed and afraid with the marvelous noise and tokens that they heard and saw in the birth of the said Robert the Devil. In that, when the child was born, the sky waxed dark as though it had been night, as it is shown in old chronicles. That it thundered and lightning so sore that men thought the firmament had been opened, and all the world should have perished. And there blew so much wind out of the four quarters of the world, and was such storm and tempest, that all the house trembled so sore, that it shook a great piece of it to the earth. Insomuch that all they that were in the house supposed that the world had been at an end, and that they with the house and all should have sunk.
And the baby, well,
this child was large of stature at his birth, and as though he had been a year old, whereof the people had great wonder. And as this child was being brought to the church to be christened and home again, it never ceased howling and crying. And in short space he had long teeth, wherewith he bit the nurses in such wise that there was no woman who durst suckle him, for he bit off the heads of their breasts.
His growth is strangely accelerated in behavior as a young child, on the unruly side.
When he found any children, he smote and beat and cast stones at them, and broke their arms and legs and necks, and scratched the eyes out of their heads, and therein with all his delight and pleasure.
Unsurprisingly, the children come up with their own nickname for the child, and it sticks. Robert the Devil. After killing one of his schoolmates, he's unrepentant and particularly devilish in church, where he knocked the heads of anyone bowed in prayer.
And when he found the priests and clerks singing God's service, he came behind them and cast ashes or dust in their mouths in despite of God.
When he reaches the age of 18, his mother suggests the medieval equivalent of military school. He's to be trained as a knight. Upon completion of his training, there is a tournament to celebrate his knighting, in which Robert
did marvelous deeds of arms in killing and bringing down horse and man. Of some he brake arms and some legs, and bore them through and killed them out of hand. From him went none unmarked.
Eventually, his father steps in to put a stop to the slaughter, but Robert just rides off to begin a new course of villainy.
He began to do every day more harm than the other one, for he forced and ravished maidens and wives without number. He killed and murdered so much people that it was pity. Also, he robbed churches, abbeys, and hermitages, and farms. There was not an abbey in all the country, but he robbed and pillaged them.
His father is forced to send out his men to capture his own son, but they do not fare well.
All them that he could get, he put out their eyes. And so he took the men that his father sent for him, and put out their eyes to spite his father.
By this time, Robert has gathered together a gang of scoundrels to join in his evil deeds, and his father sends messengers
throughout the dukedom, commanding on his behalf all sheriffs, bailiffs, and other officers to do their utmost diligence to take Robert, his son, prisoner. When Robert heard of this proclamation, he with all his company was sore afraid of the duke's malice. And when Robert saw this, he was almost out of his wits for anger, and whetted his teeth like a boar, and swore a great oath, saying thus, that he would have open war with his father, and subdue and spoil all his lordship.
Robert and company retreat to a fortified house deep in the woods. Among his comrades are now
murderers, thieves, street robbers, rebels, burners of churches and houses, forcers of women, robbers of churches, and the most wicked and accursed thieves that were under the sun. Every man fled from them like as the sheep fled from the wolf. For they were as wolves, warring and slaying all they could come by. Also, poor pilgrims that went on pilgrimage were murdered by Robert and his company. And in the middle of the wood, he saw 7 holy hermits, to whom he rode as fast as he could, with his sword ready drawn, like a man out of his mind. And there he slew 7 holy hermits, which were bold and good men, but they were so virtuous and holy that they suffered the martyrdom for the love of God. There did Robert a cursed deed and bloodshedding, in despite of God and Holy Church. And after he had done this mischievous deed, he rode out of the wood like a devil out of hell, and his clothes were all dyed red, and with the blood of the people he had murdered and slain.
One day, out wandering, Robert happens upon a shepherd who has heard that his mother, the Duchess, will be visiting a nearby castle for dinner. And Robert rides off to the castle.
But when the people saw him, they ran away from him like the hare from the hounds. One ran and shut him in his house. Another ran into the church for fear. Oh, Almighty God, how may this be, that this man fleeth thus from me? Now I perceive that I am the most mischievous and the most accursed wretch of this world.
Then he spies
His own mother, who would have fled likewise. He called unto her piteously and said, Dear Lady Mother, I pray and require you tell me how, and by what manner, or whereby cometh, that I am so vicious and cursed.
Horrified to contemplate the misery she's brought into the world, the Duchess cries out,
My dear son, I require you heartily that you will smite off my head. This, said the lady, for the very great pity that she had upon him, for because she had given him to the devil in his conception.
Recognizing his sin and all the misery he's brought into the world, Robert declares,
I will take the way to Rome to be pardoned of my sins.
But first, a little business back in his forest stronghold. He rides back and orders the band of outlaws to follow his example and repent. But the request is not well received. One of the miscreants speaks up.
Now, sirs, take heed. The fox will be a monk, for he beginneth to preach. Robert mocketh fast with us, for he is our captain, and doth more harm alone than all we do. How think thee, will he be long thus holy?
This not being the expected response, Robert revises his plans.
He secretly made fast the door, and got a great club, and laid one of the thieves on the head, that he fell down dead to the earth. And so he served one after the other till he had killed them, every one.
Locking up the house and its stolen booty, he departs. Later, he
fortuned to come riding by an abbey, which he had many times robbed, and the abbot was his kinsman.
The terrified monks prepare to flee, but
then he went and spoke to the abbot and monks so sweetly and so piteously and amiably that they began to go towards him, to whom Robert said piteously, weeping and kneeling on his knees, My lord, I acknowledge myself that I have grievously offended you, and have done great harm and injury into your abbey. Wherefore, I require and pray you in all the honor of Christ's passion of forgiveness.
When the abbot offers his forgiveness, Robert turns over the key, instructing him to reclaim from within what was stolen from the abbey, and then give the key to his father so he might distribute the rest to Robert's victims. And with that, he rides off. He arrives in Rome on Good Friday and attempts to gain an audience with the Pope after he has said Mass, but
the Pope's servants saw that Robert pressed so sore to come to the Pope. They smote him and bade him go back. But the more they smote him, the more he pressed and thronged to get nigh the Pope. And so at last he got to him, and fell down on his knees at the feet of the Pope, crying with a loud voice, saying thus, O Holy Father, have mercy on me. And thus lay Robert crying long, while the people that were by the Pope were angry that Robert made such a noise, and would have driven him thence. But the Pope, seeing Robert's great desire, had pity upon him, and said to the people, Let him alone, for in all that I can see, he hath great devotion.
Robert then makes a full confession to the Pope, who sends him to a spot a short ride from Rome, where he is to see a holy hermit who will guide him through his penance. The night he arrives, an angel visits the hermit in a dream and lays out the plans, saying,
He must keep and counterfeit the ways of a fool, and be as he were dumb, and he may eat no manner of meat, that he can take it from the dogs. And in this wise, without speaking, and counterfeiting the fool, and nothing eating but what he can take from the dogs, he must be till time that it please God to show him that his sin be forgiven.
Robert is actually relieved upon hearing his orders.
Thanking our Lord, he was pardoned of his sins, and had therefore so light penance as he thought that it was.
He returns to Rome, where
he began to leap and run about the streets, making himself as he had been a fool, and the children in the streets saw Robert run in this way. Then they ran after him, shouting and crying, and casting with mire and dirt and all such filth as they found in the streets. And the citizens of the city lay in their windows, and laughed and mocked Robert.
Moved either by compassion or curiosity, the emperor has his servants bring Robert into his palace for a meal, but soon notices that he will not eat.
And while Robert sat at the table, the emperor saw one of his hounds fighting with another dog. Wherefore the emperor cast him a bone, and the dog caught the bone, and began to gnaw thereon. And Robert, seeing that, leaped from the table and took it from him. But the dog fought with Robert for the bone, and held fast to the one end, and Robert the other. But Robert saw that it would be no better, but sat him down on the ground and gnawed on one end of the bone, and the dog on the other.
The emperor and his guests watch with amusement as Robert eventually gets the bone for himself. More food is brought for the dogs and the strange visitor until all have eaten their fill.
And when Robert had filled his belly, he rose up and walked up and down the hall with a staff in his hand, smiting upon stools and benches as if he had been a very innocent fool. And when night came, Robert followed the aforesaid dog, who was accustomed to lie every night under a stair. And there he went, and laid him down by the dog. Anon, 2 servants brought Robert a bed to sleep on, but he pointed to bear it away, for he'd rather lie on the floor and cold earth than upon a soft bed, whereof the emperor had great marvel, and commanded that men should bear him clean straw, which they did. And in his penance lived Robert 7 years or thereabout. And the dog that he commonly slept withal perceived that he fared the better, and had more meat for Robert's sake than he was wont to have before.
Now, another plot line unfolds. We learn that the emperor has a beautiful daughter who was born mute. Despite this, his steward is in love with her and asks for her hand in marriage, which the emperor denies. Turns out the ruler is a good judge of character, as the steward spitefully turns on him and joins an army of Saracens advancing on the city. As the emperor gathers his army to address this threat, we learn that Robert has his own part to play. One day, when he is alone,
then came a voice out of heaven, sent from our Lord, saying in this manner, Robert, God commandeth you by me, that you immediately arm you with this harness, and alight upon this horse that God hath sent you, and ride in all haste possible, and rescue the emperor and his people.
As he rides off to join the battle against the Turks, the emperor's daughter notices his departure from her window. It turns out his training as a knight and days of ruthless fighting serve him well in battle. He rides in, leaving a swath of destruction.
There a man might have seen arms, legs, heads tumble on the ground, both horse and man that never rose after. Robert did so much that the Saracens were constrained to fly away, and the emperor held the field and had victory over them.
But she did know the identity of this mysterious hero, the emperor's men, right after Robert, but he evades them, returning to the castle to remove his armor and hide his horse. The daughter, however, again witnesses his actions. When Robert presents himself that night to entertain the emperor with his fool antics, it's noticed that he has now a mysterious wound from the battle on his face. The emperor is enraged, thinking one of his servants has abused Robert, but the conversation then turns to the identity of the mystery knight who made victory possible.
The emperor's daughter, this hearing, pointed that it was Robert, but the emperor understood not what his daughter meant when she pointed.
There are further forays by the Saracens against the empire, again aided by the wicked steward. Robert secretly rides out as before and evades efforts by his fellow knights to ascertain his identity. Eventually, one of the emperor's men acts on a rather drastic plan to identify the knight. Attempting to spear Robert's horse before he can ride off, he instead drives his spear into Robert's thigh. He nonetheless manages to escape, riding back to the palace to treat his wound and hide his horse and arms. He also hides the spearhead, which had been broken off in his leg.
And when Robert came into the hall, he halted as little as he could, and kept it secretly, that almost no man could perceive it, and suffered more pain 1,000 times than it seemeth by him.
Hearing of the incident with the spear, and eager to reward the hero who has twice now driven back the Saracens, the emperor announces a plan to reward him. His daughter and half his kingdom will be awarded to the mysterious hero. As evidence of his identity, however, he must produce the spearhead carried off in his wounded leg. When this news reaches the steward, he wounds himself in the thigh, breaks off the head of his spear, and presents himself to the court. The assembly is confused as rumors of the steward's treachery have already reached them, but the steward insists he is the mysterious hero, and as evidence,
took out the spearhead and showed it to the emperor, and uncovered the wound that he had made himself in his thigh. The knight stood by which had hurt Robert before, and began to compass in his mind, for he saw well that it was not the head of the spear. But he durst say nothing, for fear lest the steward would have killed him.
Much to the sorrow of the emperor's daughter, who has fallen in love with Robert, arrangements for her marriage to the steward commence. But on the day all have gathered in the church,
there did our Lord a fair miracle for the love of the holy man Robert, to the intent that he should be exalted.
And
the daughter, through the grace of God, began to speak to the emperor, her father, in this wise. Father, I hold you not wise in that you believe what this proud, foolish traitor telleth you, for all that he telleth you is lies.
She reveals that it is Robert she has seen ride to battle on the hero's white horse, and that she wishes to marry him. And as evidence, she produces the spearhead which she had seen Robert hide in the courtyard. The broken spear is produced, and the match is confirmed. The enraged steward escapes on his horse.
Then went they for the fool, the emperor and the daughter, with all the lords and ladies, unto Robert, whom they found lying among the dogs. They followed him, and did him reverence. But Robert answered them not.
The hermit who set Robert's penance has been told in a dream by an angel that he should go to Rome and find Robert and deliver a message. He arrives at that moment and reveals that this man lying among the dogs has been playing the fool as an act of penance. This penance, the hermit announces, is now ended, this being the angel's message. And Robert now speaks eloquently, praising God for his forgiveness. And the wedding is celebrated, as are Robert's victories over the Turks. There's also a little coda in which Robert rescues the emperor from a wicked knight who has captured him. When Robert flies to the rescue, he finds this knight is the steward and gives
him such a stroke on the helmet that he clove helmet and head onto the teeth, and immediately the traitor fell down dead onto the earth.
Robert and his bride ride off to Rouen and have a child of their own, Richard, who grows up to be a mighty knight in the service of Charlemagne. And so,
here endeth the life of the most fearfulest and unmercifulest and mischievous Robert the Devil, which was afterward called the servant of our Lord Jesus Christ.